What's going on, everybody? It's Drew, and on this week's episode of Culture Bust, I have a good friend, mentor, and colleague, Greg Mickelsen. Greg is one of the most outstanding motivators when it comes to working with his sales teams. He's got global impact and has done a fantastic job of leading individuals, teams, director-level people, and motivating them to be the absolute best that they can be. Greg, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Drew. Thanks for having me, sir.
Awesome. So we're going to have a few questions for you just to kind of around how you motivate people. But I like to start it off with this because I want to build it up, right? Talk to me about a time where you failed to motivate your team, and what was that impact?
Oh, man, there is not a leader out there who can say they have not failed at trying to become a leader. And as we all know, it's really where you learn the most. So I have a story for you. Early in my leadership career, I had a great opportunity. We at the time had a hybrid sales team. So they managed both acquisition and a base. And we were looking at potentially splitting the two by skill set. So I get a call from my VP that said, "Hey, Greg, we have an opportunity. We want to build a new acquisition team." And I'm like, "I'm in. Let's do it." So I put the team together about 3 months in. Just give you an example. We're in a staff meeting, and there's one guy in particular. And this guy, by the way, was a proven leader, rock star. It just super negative in my meetings, overruling my authority, and it was frustrating. I clearly was doing something wrong. I had no idea what it was. And I was just racking my brain trying to figure out, how do I find out what I'm doing wrong? And I realized I'm just going to ask him. So I set up some time one morning to go grab a cup of coffee with this guy. We sat down, we chatted. First thing he asked me is, "Am I losing my job?" And I'm like, no, you're not losing your job. I said, I just wanted to chat with you. So I asked him, "How are things going?" He would not tell me. But I was prepared for that. So I said, "How do you like to be coached? How do you like to be managed? What motivates you?" And he said, "Greg, I will tell you." Then he came out and said it. And he's like, "I hate being coached. I don't like the process of being coached. I feel like it's too much. If you have something I need to change, you just tell me." That moment changed my leadership style. Every single person that I work for, the first meeting, the first thing I'll ask them, and sometimes I get deer in headlights, "How do you like to be coached? How do you like to be managed?" Many of us think as leaders that we adapt to the people who work for us, but you can't adapt to what you don't know. You have to ask them. So definitely a time where I failed, but I think I made it up by course correcting based on feedback. It's a good question.
I bet all new managers, new leaders, including myself, kind of fall into that in the area where they want to coach based on how they know to coach or what worked for them. And man, it was an eye-opening experience for me the very first time that I was a manager managing various personalities that all wanted different things. Yeah. So thanks.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that. Let's say you were interviewing for a new sales leadership role. And I guess, how would you convince the hiring manager that you're the right person for motivating a sales team?
It's a great question. I bet you there are thousands of leaders out there who are struck with this. Actually, this just happened to me last week, and I'll tell you the story. So the interviewer just straight out asked me, "How do you motivate a sales team?" And I asked him, what's the culture today? Is it good? Is it not good? And he told me, "It's not good. We need to bring you in for many reasons, but we're cleaning house. We feel like we got the right people, but the culture's not good." And he then asked me an interesting question, which totally threw me off, is, if you had a budget, how do you spend money to motivate your sales team? I asked him, like, "Well, what do you mean spending money?" And he's like, "Well, like an event. Let's say like we just did a Top Golf event and we spent money for it." And I thought to myself, I totally disagree with where he's going with this. This is probably going to throw me out of the running. And I said, if I may, I think people wanting to join an event together is a symptom of a good culture. It does not create it. And he's like, "Well, okay, great. Well, how do you create it then?" And I said, "You got to find out what's important to them. You got to ask them, what are your goals? And then you help them achieve them. When you do that, you will see people wanting to go to events. And you can't spend money to find the right culture." In telling you this story, the direct answer to your question is, I can tell an interviewer that I'm a good leader. And he doesn't know me, so he likely isn't going to believe me. Or I can show him. How do you show somebody in an interview that you have good leadership skills? You show them your knowledge. And I did that by asking him questions. What's your leadership? What's your culture today? And I kind of walked him through what I thought it was. And he even said at the end, I really like your thoughts on leadership. That's what we need because the culture is not good. So it comes down to the psychology. If you're in an interview, you need to showcase your skills. You cannot tell them. They're not going to believe you unless you're a referral and they know you.
Jeez, I would have bombed that question, I think. That is one. Kudos to whoever asked you that question. That's an incredible question to ask, and kudos to you for nailing it. Man, that is a fantastic response. All right, we'll shift gears real quick.
Let's do it.
Let's say, so as a parent with you've got small children, I've got small children.
Oh, yeah. Menace.
Let's say they're going to like a virtual environment, or they're not sure how they're going to be schooled today. I'm sure a lot of parents that are in business or would be interested to kind of hear your perspective on this. How are you going to motivate your kids now that, that their roles as students have changed?
So I am officially a homeschool teacher for 9 weeks, Drew. That has happened. It just got confirmed actually last night.
I can't even spell math, so I don't even know what I would do there.
It's a great question. I'm going to go back to the psychology here, and I hope this isn't the black sheep of answers here, because this is probably going to hit home with some people. But the world we live in is riddled with negative reinforcement. You brush your teeth because you don't want cavities. You work ultimately to make money so you don't lose your home or that you can afford things. It's reinforcement for things that we don't want to have happen. It's negative reinforcement. And just as people, it is natural to go to what you know. When you have kids, it's, hey, if you don't eat your dinner, you don't get dessert. If you don't do this, you don't get that. That's negative reinforcement. And I just find it not effective. It's what we go to. And oftentimes, even when we use positive reinforcement, we then revert back to negative. Like, hey, if you do your homework, we'll go for a bike ride. And then when they veer off, you say, hey, you're not going to get a bike ride. You're back to negative reinforcement. So to answer your question, is positive reinforcement. My daughter loves bike rides. Like, she will bug you till you say yes. Like, she should be in sales. So what my wife and I discussed, and what our strategy is the positive reinforcement side. Like, hey, if you do all of your homework, you will get a bike ride. If you do really well, you'll get 2. And we have a nice little board up on our fridge where every time she does something good, she gets to go put it up. And what I've told my wife that we both need to make sure we're cognizant of is not falling into the negative reinforcement trap. Everybody has different parenting, styles. And certainly, one may not be more right than the other, but if you're asking me, that's what we're doing.
Man, I'm sure you stepped on some toes. You stepped on mine, but in a good way. And I'm glad you said it. Guys, this is Greg Mickelsen. You're listening to Culture Bust. And if you didn't get motivated, I don't know what will, but Greg Mickelsen has the knowledge and the inspiration to motivate a sales team, children, myself, and you. I hope you enjoyed watching.
Thank you.